I need to tell you something before I tell you anything else. My husband was not a complicated man. He paid his taxes on time. He kept his truck spotless. He called his mother every Sunday without being reminded. He coached Little League for 3 years after our son aged out because the other kids still needed someone, and Marcus Whitfield was not the kind of man who walked away from something just because it was no longer required of him. He was the most straightforward person I had ever loved. Which is why when a plumber called me from Marcus's basement 11 months after his funeral and said 4 words that stopped my blood cold. "Don't tell your mother." I knew immediately. Whatever was down there, Marcus had put it there for me. And whatever he was hiding it from her. My name is Diane Whitfield. I'm 53 years old. I live outside Columbus, Ohio. And what I'm about to tell you is the story of the phone call that changed everything I thought I knew. About my husband, about my mother, and about 14 years of Sunday dinners where someone at that table was quietly destroying us. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment right now, tell me what city or state you're watching from. I read every single one. Some details have been changed to protect people involved. But the betrayal, every piece of it is real. Marcus Whitfield grew up in Zanesville, Ohio. Son of a machinist and a school librarian. Grew up with sawdust on the kitchen table and library books on every flat surface. He told me once that his childhood smelled like motor oil and old paper, and that he had never once felt poor because of it. He built things. That was the most fundamental fact about him. Not metaphorically, literally, with his hands. Bookshelves that were still level 10 years later. A deck behind our house that took him 3 summers to finish because he kept pulling up boards and starting over when something wasn't quite right. A treehouse for our son Jamie that was, I am not exaggerating, better engineered than some houses I have been inside as an adult. We met when I was 26. I was a dental hygienist in Columbus. He came in with a cracked molar and left with my phone number, which I gave him voluntarily, which was not something I made a habit of. We were married the following year. For 22 years, Marcus ran Whitfield Home Services. HVAC and plumbing contracting. He started it from a used van, a toolbox, and a business card he had printed at Office Depot. He built it to a crew of 11. He never got rich, we both understood that was not what we were building toward, but we were always steady. We owned our house on Maple Creek Drive outright by the time he was 48. We had savings. We had a son who was turning into a good man. We had, I thought, a complete life. Marcus died 17 months ago. Brain aneurysm. He was in the backyard tightening a fence post on a Saturday afternoon, and he was gone before the ambulance arrived. No warning. No goodbye. Just the sound of the screen door and then silence, and then a neighbor calling my name from across the yard. I don't have a more graceful way to say it. It happened that fast. Now my mother. Beverly Crane. 71 years old. Beverly is the kind of woman who fills a room not with warmth but with certainty. She always had a comment ready. Always had a reason why your decision was slightly inferior to the one she would have made. She was not cruel, I want to be careful about that word. She loved me in the way some people love, loudly, conditionally, with a running editorial underneath everything. After my father died 12 years ago, Beverly was alone. Marcus, being exactly who he was, felt responsible for her. He helped with her taxes. Fixed things around her house. Made sure she had plans on holidays. He included her in everything without being asked, because that was the kind of man he was. She had a key to She had a key to our house. Of course she did. She had been coming to Sunday dinner for 14 years. And for at least 7 of those years, I know this now, she had been stealing from us. I didn't know any of that on the morning Danny Purcell called me from my dead husband's basement. I was at the grocery store. It was a Tuesday in September. And the 4 words he said to me changed the next 17 months of my life. Danny Purcell had worked for Marcus for 9 years. 38 years old. Stocky. Hands that looked like they'd been put to hard use since childhood, because they had. He was one of Marcus's most trusted people. After the funeral, Danny had quietly finished out the remaining jobs on the books and helped me wind down the business. He hadn't needed to do any of that. He did it anyway. He was kind about it in a way that required no acknowledgement, which is the best kind of kindness. I had hired him, through his own small company now, to fix a water heater issue in the basement. Routine. The kind of thing Marcus would have handled on a Saturday morning. It was 11 months after the funeral. A Tuesday in September. I was at the Meijer on Broad Street, standing in the dairy aisle trying to remember if we needed milk, when my phone rang. Mrs. Whitfield. His voice was wrong immediately. Not his normal voice. Careful. Measured. Like he was weighing every word before he released it. Danny? Everything okay down there? No, ma'am. A pause. I heard him clear his throat. I found something. In the basement. Behind the old utility shelving, Marcus had built a false wall back there. And there's a box behind it. Metal. Fireproof. Has your name written on the front. My cart stopped moving. A false wall. Yes, ma'am. The dairy aisle hummed around me. A woman with a toddler reached past me for a carton of orange juice. Normal Tuesday. Regular world. Mrs. Whitfield, before you come home. I need to ask you something. Your mother, is she around today? Something happened in my chest in that moment. A slow, cold recognition. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that has been building underground for a long time, and finally finds the surface. No, I said. She's not. Good. Come home. I'll be here. I left my cart in the middle of the aisle. The drive home took 11 minutes. I remember none of them. Danny was waiting at the basement door. He looked relieved to see me. He walked me down the stairs, past the water heater he hadn't touched yet, to the back wall of the basement, behind the old metal utility shelving where Marcus kept spare parts and extra fittings he'd accumulated over 20 years. The shelving had been pulled away from the wall. Behind it, a section of drywall, carefully cut, leaning to one side. And in the cavity behind it, set deep into the wall framing, a flat black metal box. The size of a shoebox. The kind built to survive a house fire. On the front, in Marcus's handwriting, the big, angular block letters he used when something mattered. Danny put his hand briefly on my shoulder. Then he went back upstairs without a word. I stood alone in my basement in the cold September air, next to the water heater my husband never got to fix, looking at the box he had hidden inside a wall. I thought about all the evenings I'd heard him down here. Working on something. I had never asked what. I never had a reason to. I thought about Beverly's key to our house. How she came by sometimes when we weren't home. Just dropping something off. Just leaving a casserole in the fridge. I thought about how the last time she had done that was 5 weeks ago. And how when I came home that evening, the basement door wasn't quite closed the way I always closed it. I reached into the wall. I lifted the box out. The box wasn't locked. Marcus had known I'd need to open it alone, and he'd known I'd need to open it without a key. What was inside took me 3 hours to read. And when I was finished, I sat on that concrete floor and understood for the first time why my husband had sometimes looked tired in a way that sleep never fixed. The box held 4 things. A white envelope. Diane written across the front in Marcus's all-caps block letters, the handwriting he used when something was important. A USB drive in a small plastic bag. Labeled in pen, evidence, password is what you called the fish. A sealed manila envelope, thick, taped shut. And at the bottom of the box, a photograph. The two of us at Put-in Bay, Lake Erie. The summer before Jamie started high school. We're both squinting into the sun. We look tired and happy. That specific combination that belongs only to people who are building something real together and know it. I set the photograph on the shelf. I opened the letter. 4 pages. Yellow legal pad. His handwriting, big and angular, the way Marcus wrote everything, like he was always in a mild hurry even when he wasn't. If you're reading this, I didn't get to finish what I needed to do. I'm sorry. That is the first thing I want to say. I have been carrying something for almost 3 years that I should have told you the day I found out. I kept it from you because I was trying to protect you, because I knew how much damage the truth would do to things you love, and because I kept believing I could fix it quietly before you ever had to know. That was wrong of me. I understand that now. Your mother has been taking money from the business. He had started noticing it 3 years before he died. Small things. Invoices that didn't match the work orders. A vendor name he didn't recognize. Monthly payments going to an account he couldn't place. He thought it was a billing error. He spent 6 months trying to make it make sense before he finally admitted to himself what it was. Beverly had registered a company. Crane Property Services, LLC. Her name. Her home address as the business address. Registered in January 2016. She had been planning this before she even began. She had been submitting invoices to Whitfield Home Services for materials procurement and vendor coordination. Services that sounded plausible. Amounts modest enough not to trigger immediate alarm. Billed monthly, like clockwork. And Marcus, who trusted her, who had given her limited bookkeeping access years earlier to help during a busy quarter, had left a door open that she had been walking through ever since. By the time he found it, the total was $94,000. He confronted her. Privately. At a diner. Without telling me. She cried. She told him she had gotten into serious credit card debt after my father died. That she was ashamed. That she had never meant for it to go so far. She begged him, his word was begged, not to tell me. She said it would destroy our relationship. She said she would pay back every dollar. She never paid back a single dollar. She continued billing. By the time Marcus built this box, he had dated the letter 8 months. Before he died, the total was $142,000. He wrote. I confronted her a second time. She didn't cry this time. She told me that if I went to the police, she would tell you that I had been stealing from the business myself. That she had documentation. I asked her what documentation. She said she had records showing transfers from the business account into a personal account. Diane, she forged my signature. She created false authorization records to use as a threat. I don't know how far she would go with it. That's what scares me most. My husband was scared of my mother. The man who had built a business from a used van and a toolbox. The man who coached Little League for 11 years. The man who had faced down difficult clients, difficult situations, difficult everything his entire working life. Was scared of my 71-year-old mother. Because she was willing to use me as a weapon against him. He ended the letter. Everything on the drive is documented. I was going to take it to an attorney in January. I'm sorry I didn't move faster. I'm sorry I carried this alone. You deserved a partner who told you everything, and instead you got one who tried to fix it all in the dark and ran out of time. The fish's name, you'll remember. You always said it was too long for a fish. Take care of yourself and Jamie. All my love, always. Marcus. We had a goldfish for 3 years when Jamie was 7. Jamie had named it Sir Reginald Bartholomew III, which was completely insane for a goldfish, and which Marcus thought was the funniest thing our son had ever done. He had laughed about that name for years. I went upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I typed Sir Reginald Bartholomew III and pressed enter. The drive opened. And what was on it was worse than the letter, not because of the money, but because of what she had done to cover it up. Marcus had organized everything the way he organized his job files. Neat. Labeled. Sequential. Nothing out of order. The registration documents. Beverly's full name. Her home address listed as the business address. Registered January 14, 2016. She had incorporated a shell company before she sent the first invoice. This was not impulsive. This was planned. 81 months of them. I opened one from March 2018. Materials coordination for HVAC commercial account, Q1 vendor procurement. $3,200. It looked like a real invoice. Professional formatting. Reasonable language. An amount modest enough to pass a quick review. She had studied what our business invoices looked like and built something that would blend in seamlessly. She had been careful. She had been patient. She had done this for 7 years without a single mistake. Marcus had pulled the records himself. Every payment from Whitfield Home Services to Crane Property Services, then traced from Crane's account into Beverly's personal checking account within 48 hours of receipt. Every single time. 48 hours. Never varied. She wasn't pretending to run a business. She was using the LLC as a pipeline that ran directly into her own pocket. This was the part that made my hands shake. 3 emails. From Beverly's personal address to Marcus's work email. All sent in the same week, the week after his second confrontation with her. The first, I have records of the transfers, Marcus. Don't push me on this. The second, I am your wife's mother. Think carefully about what you are doing to this family. The third, the one I read 3 times before I believed it. I have a copy of the business account statements with your signature authorizing payments to a vendor account. My attorney says it is enough to raise a question. I am not asking you for anything. I am only asking you to leave this alone. She had created forged authorization documents. She had threatened my husband with them. My mother had looked at the man who had taken care of her for 12 years, who had fixed her furnace, helped with her taxes, driven her to appointments, included her in every holiday of our lives, and she had said, I have a weapon. And I will use it. A running document. Updated monthly. Every suspicious transaction recorded with dates and amounts. His own handwritten calculations beside the typed entries. At the bottom of the last page in capital letters. Total as of August, $142,000. Do not confront again. Go to attorney in September. He died in June. He never made it to September. Marcus had installed a small camera at our back door 2 years before he died. A neighbor's shed had been broken into, and he had quietly put up a camera without making a big thing of it. I had completely forgotten it existed. 7 clips. All from weekday mornings. All during windows when I was at work. Beverly. Walking up to the back door with her key. Going inside. In every single clip, she went directly to the basement door. The most recent clip was dated 3 weeks before I hired Danny. In that clip, she was in the basement for over 40 minutes. She was looking for the box. She knew it existed. Marcus had told her during the second confrontation that he had documentation. She had been trying to find it and destroy it before I did. She had been searching my house while I was grieving my husband. I called Danny back inside. I showed him the camera footage. He watched Beverly in the basement in complete silence. Then he said quietly, Mrs. Whitfield, I noticed fresh scratches on the wall behind the shelving when I moved it. She tried to get in, she just couldn't find the seam. My husband had hidden it well enough that even someone who knew it was there could not find it. I called my cousin Rachel that evening. Rachel is a paralegal in Cincinnati. She is direct, precise, and constitutionally uninterested in comfort before she has given you the practical information you need. She is exactly who you want on the phone when your dead husband has left you documented evidence that your mother has been stealing from your family for 7 years. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "You have a strong civil case, and a very possible criminal case depending on how the DA looks at the pattern. You need an attorney first thing tomorrow. Do you have someone?" I didn't. Marcus had always handled the legal side of the business. She gave me a name. Sandra Obi. Civil litigation, Columbus. Rachel had worked alongside her on 2 cases and trusted her without reservation. I called Sandra's office at 7:45 the next morning. By 9 o'clock I was sitting across from her. Sandra Obi was 50 years old. Calm in a way that felt structural, like the room itself became more stable when she was present. She read Marcus's letter. She went through every folder on the drive. She took notes on a yellow legal pad in a handwriting I could not read from any angle. When she finished, she set her pen down. "Your mother built a shell company to extract money from your husband's business," she said. "She invoiced for services that were never performed. She transferred the proceeds into her personal account within 48 hours of every payment, which is a consistent money laundering pattern. When confronted, she created forged authorization documents and used them as a threat. And she has been entering your home without your permission, visible on the security footage, to search for and destroy evidence." She folded her hands. "Mr. Whitfield built you a very complete case. The question now is what you want to do with it. What are my options?" She walked me through them without rushing. A civil suit, demanding full restitution of $142,000 plus interest. With Marcus's documentation, the outcome was not seriously in doubt. A criminal complaint to the Franklin County DA. Theft by deception over a sustained period at these amounts qualified as felony charges in Ohio. The forged documents added additional counts. Or a demand letter first. Show Beverly exactly what existed. Give her a deadline. See whether she chose to respond. "My honest advice," Sandra said, "is that you do not contact her yourself. You do not warn her. You give her no indication that anything has changed. Let me send the letter. Let it happen on paper, not in your kitchen on a Sunday." She looked at me directly. "Your husband spent the last years of his life protecting you from this. The best thing you can do now is finish it cleanly." I thought about Marcus in the basement. Building a false wall. Choosing a fireproof box. Writing 4 pages on a yellow legal pad. Organizing 14 folders on a USB drive with a password named after a goldfish our son had named as a 7-year-old joke. I thought about how tired he had looked sometimes. How I had asked what was wrong, and he had said just work stuff, and I had believed him completely. "Send the letter," I said. "Give her 2 weeks. Beverly called me 3 days after the letter arrived. Her voice was completely normal. She asked if I was free for lunch Saturday. She asked about Jamie. She mentioned she might stop by during the week to drop off some old photos of my father. I said sure. I hung up and sat there with the phone in my lap and understood. She was going to act like nothing was happening and wait for me to back down. Her attorney contacted Sandra on day 11. Gerald Frisch. Mid-tier civil practice. Sandra knew him, careful, competent, the kind of attorney who understood when a situation had turned against his client. He asked for a meeting. Thursday morning. Sandra's conference room. Clean table. Gray carpet. Windows facing a parking garage. The kind of room that takes no sides and has heard everything. Beverly walked in with Gerald Frisch, and she looked exactly as she always had. Silver hair. Good posture. The pearl earrings she wore to church and to every occasion she considered worth presenting herself for. She had dressed deliberately for this meeting. She sat across from me and for 3 full seconds she smiled at me the way she had smiled at me my entire life, that particular, practiced smile that said she was in control of the room. Then she looked at Sandra. The smile became something smaller. Tighter. A recalibration. Gerald opened with the expected argument. The invoices represented legitimate consulting services Beverly had provided to the business over the years. There had been a failure of proper documentation. Marcus had been aware of the arrangement. Sandra let him finish completely. Then she opened her laptop and turned it to face them. Folder 3. The bank transfers. 81 payments. Every one traced from Crane Property Services into Beverly's personal account within 48 hours of receipt. Mechanical. Systematic. Never varying once across 7 years. Gerald looked at the screen. He glanced at Beverly. Something passed across his face, a quiet professional recalculation. The expression of a man who had just understood the shape of the situation he was actually in. Sandra pulled up the emails. Beverly's own words on the screen across the table from her. I have a copy of the business account statements with your signature authorizing payments. I watched my mother read her own words on someone else's laptop. These communications, Sandra said, her voice completely level, established that your client knew she was taking money without authorization, because when confronted by Mr. Whitfield, rather than producing evidence of a legitimate arrangement, she produced a forged document and threatened to deploy it. That is not the response of someone with a legitimate claim. That is the response of someone who got caught and decided to fight dirty. Beverly looked at me. The smile was entirely gone. Diane. Her voice was measured. Controlled. I want you to understand. I'm going to stop you there, I said. I had not planned to speak. Sandra had suggested I let her lead the meeting. But something had been waiting inside me for a very long time, and it came out quietly and completely. You sat in my kitchen every Sunday for 14 years, I said. You sat across from my husband while he was quietly documenting what you were doing to our family. You watched him look tired in a way I could not explain. I asked him what was wrong. He said nothing because he was trying to protect me from knowing what you were. And when he found the courage to confront you directly, you threatened him. You created forged documents. You looked at the man who had taken care of you for 12 years, and you used our family as a weapon against him. The room was very quiet. Beverly's jaw was set. Her hands were flat on the table. She was not going to cry. That was not who Beverly was. I didn't have a choice, she said finally. After your father died. You had the same choices everyone has, I said. You could have asked for help. You could have said, Diane, I'm struggling, I need help. We would have helped you. Marcus would have helped you. He had been helping you for 12 straight years and you repaid that by stealing from him, threatening him, and entering my home to search for evidence while I was in the first year of grieving his death. I looked at her directly. You didn't not have a choice. You made choices. Every single month for 7 years you chose. She didn't answer. Sandra slid the settlement documents across the table. Full restitution. $142,000. Gerald negotiated the payment timeline, 90 days, for installments. Sandra added one non-negotiable provision: Beverly would surrender her key to our house immediately, and would not enter the property again without my explicit written permission. Violation of any term meant immediate criminal referral to the Franklin County DA. Beverly signed. Her hand was completely steady. She had always had steady hands. She stood to leave without looking at me. At the door she paused. I thought she was going to say something. She didn't. She walked out. Gerald Frisch offered me a brief, complicated look that I understood was the closest thing to an apology he could offer in a professional context. Then he followed her. And I sat in that conference room alone for a long time, not feeling what I had expected to feel. The first payment arrived 22 days after the meeting. Sandra texted, "Payment 1 received. $35,500. On schedule." I was standing in the kitchen when the message came through. I stood there holding my phone for a long time. Then I went outside and sat on the deck, the one Marcus had spent 3 summers building, tearing up boards twice because something wasn't quite level, and I stayed there until dark. Jamie found out 2 weeks after the settlement. I told him myself. I wasn't going to let him hear it any other way. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. The particular quiet of someone processing something that requires completely rearranging what they thought they knew. Then, Dad knew about this the whole time. The last 3 years of his life. Yes. And he never said anything. He was trying to protect us. Jamie looked out the window at the backyard. At the deck. At the fence post Marcus had been tightening when he died. He was always doing that, he said quietly. Carrying stuff so we didn't have to. We sat with that for a long time. Beverly and I have not spoken since the meeting. She has made no attempt to contact me, not to apologize, not to explain, not to ask about Jamie. The silence has its own texture. I have been surprised in the months since by how little I miss her. I expected her absence to feel like a missing tooth, something you reach for constantly without thinking. What it actually feels like is more like a room after furniture has been rearranged. Space where there wasn't space before. Quietness where there was always noise. My cousin Rachel organized a dinner in March. 8 women. A restaurant on High Street. A bottle of wine that cost more than it should have. I laughed for 3 hours, real laughing, the kind that comes from somewhere deep, and realized halfway through the evening that I hadn't done that in years. Not since Marcus died. Maybe longer than that, if I was being completely honest. The final payment arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. Sandra called instead of texting that time. It's done. Full amount. All 4 payments. Cleared. I was in Marcus's old office, which I had started using as my own workspace, which felt complicated and right at the same time. His workbench along one wall. His tools organized exactly the way he had kept them. The black metal box on the shelf, empty now, still labeled Diane. Open alone. Thank you, Sandra, I said. He did the work, she said. You just finished it. I want to tell you what I did with the money. Because that part matters most. That's the part that feels like Marcus. I thought about it for a long time before I decided. $142,000 is not a small amount of money. It represented 7 years. It represented the distance between the business Marcus had built and the business it could have been. Not a gift, a match. Whatever he saves toward a house, I will match it dollar for dollar, up to that amount. Marcus had mentioned wanting to do this for him twice in the last year of his life, then stopped mentioning it. I understand now why he stopped. Danny Purcell came back on board. We rebuilt Whitfield Home Services, smaller than before but real. A crew of 4 now. We do good work. We do it the way Marcus taught. A domestic abuse shelter in Columbus that Sandra had mentioned, quietly, serves women leaving financial abuse situations. A grief support organization that had helped me through the worst months of that first year. And a small fund at Jamie's old elementary school for kids whose families need help with supplies and food, because Marcus had coached Little League for kids who needed someone, and that felt like the right kind of continuation. I put a small plaque on the wall of the office. Not large. Marcus would have been uncomfortable with anything too formal. Just a small metal plate engraved. Marcus Whitfield. He built things that lasted. Danny saw it the first week back. He didn't say anything. He just stood there for a moment, then nodded at it, the way that men sometimes communicate the things they don't have words for. That felt exactly right. I want to say something before we're done. Not about revenge. Not about justice, though justice did happen here. I want to say something about what it actually costs to carry a secret in order to protect someone you love. Marcus carried this for 3 years. He carried it through Sunday dinners and family holidays, and the ordinary Tuesdays and Thursdays of a long marriage. He carried it through business decisions and client calls and the quiet evenings when I asked what was wrong, and he said nothing, and I believed him completely. He carried it until he built a false wall in a basement. Bought a fireproof box. Wrote 4 pages on a legal pad. Organized 14 folders on a USB drive with a password only I would know, the name of a goldfish our son had named as a 7-year-old joke, because Marcus knew that I had always thought that name was too long for a fish, and he trusted that I would remember. He was not a complicated man. But he did a very complicated thing, trying to protect me from something he thought I couldn't carry. He was wrong about that. I could have carried it. We could have carried it together, which is the thing about marriage that he understood in every other way. But he loved me in the way he knew how to love, quietly, practically, with his hands and his plans and his careful arrangements. He built things that lasted. Including the thing that finally protected us. If you are carrying something right now, a secret, a fear, a situation that feels too complicated to hand to another person, please consider that the weight of what you're carrying has a cost. It always does. Talk to someone. Find an attorney if you need one. Find a trusted friend. You do not have to solve it alone in the dark. And if this story landed somewhere real for you tonight, drop a comment. Just say I heard you. I'll know what it means. Share this with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want.